I'm Jeff Paur, senior writer for RealTime Fantasy Sports. Welcome to another edition of the RealTime Fantasy Sports show. On today's show, I'm joined again by contributing writer here at RealTime Fantasy Sports, Logan Glaser. Logan, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me on.
Good to have you on once again. So on today's show, Logan and I are going to talk about the fantasy strength of schedules. So last week, schedules were released, Logan. Big deal. They made a big deal about it. The NFL did.
Yeah, they do a very slow release with these schedules, kind of highlighting the main games and then working its way. It's a whole week deal, basically, leading up to the full release.
And we're going to tell you what it means to you as fantasy owners and how it impacts your season going forward. So we're going to look at the strength of schedules. We have this great little tool here at RealTime Fantasy Sports. It's in the reports section in your home leagues, and you click on fantasy defenses, and it tells you each position which defenses allow the most fantasy points to quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends. So you can actually go in and you can look at that. It's a great tool I use during the season, and I used it also when these schedules are released, and so I come up with the strength of schedule, the fantasy strength of schedule for each position. We're going to talk about that, look at the QBs, running backs, receivers, tight ends, and also their fantasy playoff schedules. We looked at weeks 14 to 17 as well, so that gives you an indication of the fantasy players that have the best schedules for the playoffs, which I think is important as well, Logan.
Absolutely.
So we talked about the schedules, and we had some great contests we actually ran with several NFL teams, the Cardinals, Broncos, and Cowboys. We ran a schedule predictor contest. You had to try to guess what you thought the schedule would be, because we knew the teams they were playing, but we didn't know when they were playing, the weeks that they were playing, and they had some great prizes. They gave away season tickets. One of the contests gave away airfare, hotel, 2 tickets to the games. So it was a lot of fun to run these for these organizations. And believe it or not, all 3 of them had the same amount right, Logan, that won, which was 6. So they got 6 of 18 right.
Yeah, it's crazy that 33% won those contests for 3 different NFL teams.
Yeah, so if you didn't get in it, you should have, because you had a decent chance to win, because just 6 of 18 games were picked correctly. Did you think it might be a little better than that?
I thought I'd be at least halfway.
Yeah.
Just from guessing, but for the winner, but
so
6-1.
We were excited to run these contests. We're probably going to do more stuff like this, and we'll let you know. Keep an eye on our Twitter handle for that. Also, we wanted to mention Dynasty rookie drafts start tomorrow for our money leagues. Logan, can you talk about that briefly?
Yeah, so starting tomorrow night, 7 o'clock Eastern time, our Dynasty rookie drafts will start. It's an 8-hour slow draft for all the leagues. It's an 8-round rookie draft. You are free to trade your players and picks, so lots of trades will be happening this weekend.
Definitely. Those are always a lot of fun as well. And also, our invitational, our RealTime Fantasy Sports Invitational, first time we've ever done this. All the invitations went out. We invited the top players on our site. It is already 60% full, correct, Logan?
Correct, yes. The invitational is 60% full. We've got less than 30 spots remaining in that contest. It is a 93% payout on that contest, so it's rewarding those top users. And make sure to get in if you're ranked inside the top 500 for that league, because it's going to fill up pretty quickly.
Yeah, definitely going to fill out. People are really excited about that, and you can only get in once, right?
Correct, 1 entry per user.
So I think that's going to, really show the best of the best in this contest, that you can't have multiple entries. So it should be a lot of fun. Let's get into these schedules now, Logan. Let's talk about the quarterback schedule first. We'll look at the easiest quarterback fantasy schedule, and right now it's the Giants, Cowboys, Eagles, Jacksonville Jaguars, and Denver Broncos. That's for the regular season. For the playoffs, Giants, again, they lead the list for both regular season and the playoffs. Then the Cleveland Browns, San Francisco 49ers, Denver Broncos, and Detroit Lions. So what sticks out to you as you look at this?
Yeah, obviously having the New York Giants being number 1 on the regular season and playoffs. The main reason, I think, because of that is they play Minnesota in the playoffs, and that Minnesota had a terrible secondary last year. But during the 2022 draft, they made up for that. They drafted a cornerback and safety with their first 2 picks. How much value do you really take into consideration when you look at these rankings?
Yeah, we should have mentioned that. I do put value into it, Logan. I do think it's important to look at. I don't think you can take it, for face value that it's going to be this year. This is the teams that are going to be the worst when it comes to defending the quarterback. But I definitely think there's patterns, and I think it's something that you should consider when you're setting your rankings for the coming season, especially if you're in big contests, because in my opinion, you need those combination, those big-time point totals in the playoffs. And if you can see a good, favorable schedule for the playoffs, especially in big game contests, I would consider, taking players that have a little more advantageous schedule in the playoffs. I don't do it quite as much for the regular season just because you have to get there first. And I feel like there's a lot of uncertainty when it comes to, just the regular season with injuries and teams playing better that you didn't expect. But for the playoffs, if I'm in these big game contests, I'm definitely considering, these teams with advantageous schedules.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, for me, the things that stand out for the QB, like you said, the Giants. Do I trust Daniel Jones? He is #1 for both the playoffs and regular season. I'm not sure I do. It's still Daniel Jones. I like that offense better, though. So with Brian Daboll there calling plays, and there's already been positive reports in New York about them trying to get the ball out quicker so Jones doesn't have to think as much. And I think he is going to help there. So maybe bump up Jones a little bit in your rankings. Consider him as a #2 fantasy quarterback if you have a good #1. One thing that does stand out is the Eagles. I like Jalen Hurts a lot this year. I don't love him as a QB exactly because, kind of because of his accuracy issues, but I like his situation this year with A.J. Brown now. Finally as a #1 receiver. So I think that's a real positive in my opinion. And the Cleveland Browns, too, have a playoff schedule that is the #2 ranked as most favorable. And Deshaun Watson might be suspended early in the year, but he'll likely be there for the playoffs. So something to think about if he slips in drafts, maybe get that Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper combo. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I like that combination.
All right, let's look at the hardest schedule for quarterbacks now when it comes to fantasy. So leading off that is the New York Jets for the regular season. They have the toughest schedule for fantasy quarterbacks, followed by the Baltimore Ravens, Miami Dolphins, Kansas City Chiefs, Pittsburgh Steelers. And for the playoffs, Cincinnati Bengals, Miami Dolphins, Las Vegas Raiders, New York Jets, Chicago Bears. So, Logan, when you look at this list, a couple teams that are on there twice, so you avoiding them at all?
Yeah, I am avoiding some of those, but the one that mainly stands out to me is Cincinnati Bengals being #1 for the playoffs. Last year, a lot of our playoff teams were won based off of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Burrow had over 500 yards in one game, 400-plus yards in another game. And this year, when you're looking at their playoff schedule in weeks 14 through 17, you've got Cleveland Browns, Tampa Bay Bucks, New England Patriots, and Buffalo Bills. That's a hard schedule to go against in the playoffs. So that might bump down Joe Burrow a little bit on my rankings.
Definitely.
Season.
Great point. And for me, what stands out is a couple uncertain quarterbacks. In my opinion, Zach Wilson, not huge on him. And now he has the toughest schedule overall, and then 4th to the playoffs, so that scares me. And then Tua Tagovailoa. So, great weapons Tua has this year with Tyreek Hill, new coach, which I think is going to help too. But, man, #3 toughest schedule for the regular season, #2 for the playoffs. That scares me a little bit. I'm worried about him for the coming season because of that. Kansas City Chiefs on there for regular season too. Some people you got to just matchup proof. In my opinion, that's Patrick Mahomes. Lamar Jackson, #2 overall for the hardest during the regular season. That doesn't worry me a lot because he runs the ball as well. So that's our thoughts on the hardest for the quarterback. So let's look at the running back position now for fantasy. Logan, easiest running back schedule for fantasy running backs. #1, Miami Dolphins. #2, Chicago Bears. #3, Denver Broncos. #4, New England Patriots, followed by the Buffalo Bills. And for the playoffs, Carolina Panthers, San Francisco 49ers, Buffalo Bills, New York Jets, Detroit Lions. So your thoughts on this?
Yeah, so when you're looking at this, it's kind of similar traits with all these with the strength of schedules is that you're going to see teams within the same division. So right now in the regular season, you got 3 teams in the AFC East. You got Miami Dolphins, New England Patriots, and Buffalo Bills, all with the easiest strength of schedule. Last year, they didn't have the best running group, and it's kind of the same this year as well. I'm not really trusting anyone in that Dolphins backfield, so I'm completely staying away from them, even though they do have the easiest schedule. And then you got Chicago Bears with Montgomery. I kind of move him up a little bit on my list because the Bears really don't have any weapons, and they're going to rely on him pretty heavily. And then you got Javonte Williams and Melvin Gordon with the Broncos. And I really like Javonte Williams this year, especially with the 3rd easiest schedule for running backs.
So for me, Logan, I'm the same way. So Miami, New England, and Buffalo, I don't like those situations. I'm not sure who's going to lead their backfield and carries. So although they have great schedules, I may take some chances on these guys, but they still worry me despite having the easiest running back schedule for the regular season. So I'm still concerned there. But like you, David Montgomery, like him a lot. Javonte Williams too. And for the playoffs, Christian McCaffrey, can he make it? Can he make it all the way to the playoffs? I don't know. But if he's there, he could be really good this year. San Francisco, too, another team that's very good at running the ball. Elijah Mitchell is a guy I kind of like this year, so he intrigued me. And then Detroit Lions, they were actually 6th in the regular season, didn't quite make this list. 5th for the playoffs. I love DeAndre Swift this year, and this kind of solidifies that for me as well. I think he's going to have a huge year. Again, another guy that's had trouble staying healthy. If he can stay healthy, I'm looking for great things from DeAndre Swift this year. All right, let's look at the hardest running back schedule for the fantasy season. Number 1, Atlanta Falcons. Number 2, Houston Texans. Number 3, Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Number 4, Philadelphia Eagles. Then the Cincinnati Bengals. For the playoffs, Los Angeles Chargers, Houston Texans, Atlanta Falcons, Cleveland Browns, Philadelphia Eagles. Logan, your thoughts on the hardest running back strength of schedule?
Yeah, the one that really stands out to me is the Chargers in the playoffs. Look at the gap with the points for the Chargers. They're 345.7, and the next hardest schedule is the Houston Texans at 364.4. That's a huge gap. So the Chargers are going to be having a very difficult playoff schedule. They're going up against the Dolphins, the Titans, the Colts, and the Rams. Those are 4 very good run defenses, and that might steer me a little bit away from Eckler, because especially during the playoffs, that's when you need your top players to perform. And Eckler's going around 3rd overall in drafts, so you're going to be relying on him, and he's going to be playing 4 very hard defenses during that playoff schedule.
All right, good point on Eckler. For me, the thing that stands out, Atlanta Falcons being number 1 and number 3 for the playoffs. Cordarrelle Patterson, not completely sold on him with his finish to last year. I do like the fact that they did not really do much behind him. Mike Davis is gone. They do have Algier now as a draft pick that they took, but they took him later in the draft. I'm not sure he's going to make a huge impact. So Cordarrelle Patterson kind of concerns me with this schedule. In Philadelphia, too, Miles Sanders has been a bust to date, in my opinion. He's still the guy, still starting, but man, they have the 4th toughest schedule. 5th for the playoffs. That's a concern for me. Throws up some red flags on him. And Houston Texans as well. They land twice on these lists. 2nd for regular season, 2nd for playoffs. Uncertain situation with our running backs as well. This could be some of the fact that they weren't very good running the ball last year, and they play a lot of the similar teams this year. So you got to think about that too. So that might be why they're on the list as the hardest running back schedule. But still, concern for me. I'm not sure who's starting. Marlon Mack maybe. Pierce as well as the running back. So I'm not sure that that's a situation I want anything to do with. Okay, let's look at the receivers now, Logan. Easiest receiver strength of schedule. So it's kind of interesting how it works out, because a lot of times the toughest running back schedule is easiest when it comes to passing and throwing. So it kind of works out like this with the list. Easiest receiver schedule. Number 1, Philadelphia Eagles, followed by the Dallas Cowboys, New York Giants, Washington Commanders, Jacksonville Jaguars. Then for the playoffs, Los Angeles Chargers, so they had the toughest for running backs, easiest for receivers, followed by the Green Bay Packers, Houston Texans, Denver Broncos, Jacksonville Jaguars. So we have 4 NFC East teams on the easiest receiver strength of schedule list. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, especially with those 4 teams. I really like A.J. Brown with the Eagles in that situation. I do think Jalen Hurts is going to be passing them the ball more. Last year they didn't really have the great wide receiver core, but now with A.J. Brown in town, they're going to get him the ball. I really like him, especially with the easiest strength of schedule this year. And then you also got C.D. Lamb with the Cowboys. I love him as well, with Amari Cooper shipped off to Cleveland. And then also like Terry McLaurin as well with Commanders this year. Those are 3 solid wide receivers in the NFC East, and I'm looking at all of them to find a way to get them on my teams this year.
I like that too. I like the combinations of Hurts and Brown and Prescott and Lamb. I think if you're in these big game championships, I would consider, pairing those guys. I think they got a chance to produce big during the regular season, during the playoffs as well. I like that a lot. Daniel Jones, again, his Giants receivers are on this list. Kenny Galladay, can he rebound this year? I've been taking a chance on him in a lot of my drafts, and I think his stock's going up a little bit, in my opinion, because of this favorable schedule, better situation with a new coach, new offensive coordinator as well. So I think Galladay's going up. Jacksonville Jaguars, too, another team that kind of intrigues me, because Christian Kirk, you can get him really cheap. He's going to be their number 1 option in the passing game, and he's a guy I've been getting a lot in my drafts early on. So that's the easiest receiver strength of schedule. Let's look at the toughest now. The hardest is the Miami Dolphins. They're number 1 overall. followed by the Baltimore Ravens, New York Jets, Pittsburgh Steelers, Cleveland Browns. And then for the playoffs, Miami Dolphins, Cincinnati Bengals, Chicago Bears, Los Angeles Rams, New York Jets. Hardest strength of schedule for receivers, kind of similar to the QB spot. What's your thoughts on it?
Yeah, the one that really stands out is Miami Dolphins, obviously, with both the regular season and playoffs. They probably had the most question marks coming into the season with their wide receivers, with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. And I think Tyreek Hill is going to be getting a lot of attention from the top cornerbacks, so that's going to free up Jalen Waddle for allow him to get in the slot. And I expect I like Jalen Waddle this year, and I'm really down on Tyreek Hill, but I like Waddle this year for wide receivers.
Yeah, definitely it is a concern, most definitely having the Dolphins having the toughest for the regular and the playoffs. Baltimore Ravens, too, kind of one. Rashad Bateman, a lot of people like him a lot this year. Elijah Moore's gone, though. I'm just not sure he gets the volume, so I'm still not huge on Bateman. Elijah Moore is another one people really like, and this is a tough schedule, too, and the QB has a tough fantasy schedule as well, so I'm not quite as high on Moore. Also, and Pittsburgh Steelers, too, kind of worry me with their QB situation. We're not sure who's going to start there. Kenny Pickett, Mitchell Trubisky, Deontay Johnson still there, could get a lot of volume, but someone's got to throw him the ball, and that concerns me. So I'm a little bit concerned about that AFC East division and all their receiver and QB options because of this strength of schedule. All right, last one, the tight end spot. Always exciting tight end spot. Easiest strength of schedule for tight ends. We'll look at that right now. Regular season, it's Jacksonville Jaguars, Tennessee Titans, Denver Broncos, New York Giants, Dallas Cowboys. For the playoffs, Pittsburgh Steelers, New York Giants, Tennessee Titans, Minnesota Vikings, and San Francisco 49ers. So Jacksonville tops the list. Denver is on there, Tennessee. There's not really a lot of big-name tight ends when it comes to this list for easiest strength of schedule. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, the one that really stands out would be Dalton Schultz. That's basically your top tight end. Numbers 1 through 4, you don't really have a go-to tight end with those teams that you're going to be looking for in drafts. The thing that really stands out to me with this tight end position is the easiest and hardest is only separated by 36 points between the first and the 32nd for tight end. The entire league as a whole is pretty compact with defending that tight end spot. And I like Dalton Schultz this year. I think he steps up in a even bigger role with the Cowboys this year compared to last year. He had a great season last year, and I expect him to build on that this year.
I like Schultz a lot this year as well. Jacksonville kind of intrigues me, though. They signed Eric Ebron. Trevor Lawrence liked to look at the tight end last year. He had some injury issues at that position, but when they were healthy, he was thrown to the tight end. So maybe Eric Ebron finally puts it together. You can get him dirt cheap in drafts, especially right now. You can get him as a number 2. Sometimes he's not even getting drafted. You can get him late as a number 2. So I think he's worth a dart throw in my opinion. So that's one guy that kind of stands out for me. Pat Freiermuth, too, is a guy that I think could get a lot of work, whoever's quarterbacking for Pittsburgh, just because they like that safety net, especially if it's a rookie, Kenny Pickett. I think you could look for Freiermuth a lot. He had a great finish to the season last year also. So those are two guys that stand out to me when it comes to this tight end list. All right, let's look at the hardest tight ends. The last one we're going to go over, New York Jets. Again, they seem to be all over these lists. They're number 1 regular season toughest tight end fantasy schedule, followed by the Los Angeles Rams, Cincinnati Bengals, Green Bay Packers, Baltimore Ravens. Then for the playoffs, we have the Arizona Cardinals, Cincinnati Bengals, Los Angeles Raiders, Philadelphia Eagles, and the Atlanta Falcons. Thoughts?
Yeah, having the Jets being number 1 and the hardest is for several of these is kind of due to the fact that they play the Bills twice, you got the Patriots twice, and then you got the Dolphins twice. So with the hardest for the tight end schedules, the really thing that stands out to me is the playoff section for this hardest for the tight ends. You got Arizona Cardinals, Bengals, Raiders, Eagles, Falcons. That's you got Pitts there, you got Goddard there, you got Waller there, you got Zach Ertz, and it's not too concerning for me just based on the fact that only 36 points separated the top from the worst for the tight ends. It is just a little bit concerning that all those top tight ends are facing good defenses in the playoffs, but I'm not overlooking that, and I will still select those tight ends.
Yeah, for me, the one thing is Zach Ertz, just because his stock's gone down, in my opinion, a little bit with McBride there now. They used a 3rd-round draft pick on him. A lot of people thought he was the best tight end in the draft. And now Ertz has the hardest playoff schedule as well. I might just avoid him altogether because of that. Also, with Philadelphia, Dallas Goedert, I like him a lot. I think he's going to get his targets, but he has a tough playoff schedule as well. So that's a little bit concerning to him. I might bump him down in my rankings just a little bit. Also with the Rams, Tyler Higbee, 2nd toughest during the regular season. he's been all over the map to begin with. They have a lot of options in that passing game. So I just think it's going to be more of the same with Higbee. I don't think it's going to be a breakout season for him. I think some people think he might, finally put it together, but I still think it's going to be more of the same for Higbee this year, especially after seeing the schedule. All right, Logan, that's the breakdown of the fantasy strength of schedules. Appreciate you joining me again today.
Yeah, Jeff, thanks for having me on.
A lot of fun. We'll have to do this again sometime soon. Again, all sorts of contests going on at RealTime Fantasy Sports. Go to rtsports.com, click on the Money League link at the top of the page. You can see everything we have to offer, our best ball games, our big-time contest, $500,000 to the Fantasy Championship as well. So get in a contest today. A lot of great ones going on, all right, Logan?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, this has been Jeff Paur for RealTime Fantasy Sports.
And this has been Logan Glaser from RealTime Fantasy Sports.
Have a great day, everyone.